Oh. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Narayana. Hari Om and greetings from Niagara Falls. When you physically leave someone you love and they love you, it may be your parents or a significant other, your child. Suppose you're going on a work trip or back to school. They've already given you food, they've already given you a hug, you've already exchanged, we'll see you soon. And right as you leave that door, they go in for another hug. You go in for another kiss. Yes? In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna finishes teaching Prince Arjuna all that is to be known. And it's as if he gives one more thought, one more hug, one more kiss. And he says, Sarva dharman parityajya. All that I've taught you thus far, let go of that. Mam ekam sharanam vraja. Come to me, focus on me, be with me. This is the message of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This is the message of life. We can study all sorts of dharmas, and I referenced some of these last week. We can study all sorts of shastras, but the way to live is to live in such a way where our only dharma is prityartham. Priti artham. This is a phrase that is used in traditional puja, where one is engaged in this ritual not to beg of God and the Creator, but to please God, to please the Creator. And what's lovely about living a life of prityartham is one of God's names is Ashutosh. Show me Ashutosh, the one who's easily pleased. You give one, Bhagavan gives 100. We're all flowing through life. Many of us have known each other for 15 years, 12 years. We've been studying together for 5 years. Do you feel the presence of the divine as you're flowing? Is that bhava with you? And I pray that it is. And if it's not, our course is called Applied Gita. Not theoretical Gita, not philosophical Gita. How to feel that everything we do, everything we are, is a song. One of my favorite memories that I'll always remember Vyasa by is he doesn't walk, he skips. Everywhere he goes, he skips. He skips in this house, he skips to school. And that is what Gita is, isn't it? There's a song going on in his head, and he's living that song. For the month of January, we are taking up working. Applied Gita and working. And we began with chapter 5, verse 8. And the main thought in this verse is that working is all verbs. Does brushing your teeth count? Does commuting count? Does conflict resolution count? For all of our students, studying is working. For all of you who are caring for matters at home, the cleanliness, the cooking, the kids, that's working too. With this insight, we don't have this fragmented strategy that I'm going to be an awesome professional, but a miserable family person. Working is all verbs. No externalities based on orientation or income or age. We moved on to chapter 13, verse 11, where Bhagavan Krishna tells Prince Arjuna, converting values to virtues is knowledge. Our idea of knowledge is very technical. And that which is technical, you don't feel that inside of you. You feel that which is simple inside of you. The purpose of all of our verbs is to convert values to virtues. And Swami Chinmayananda shares this in a beautiful expression. We are to live with freedom not from action, but freedom in action. We're lost in this idea that I have to let go of this work. I have to let go of this person. I have to renounce this. Freedom in action. All that you're doing, if you are converting values to virtues, you are free. That is what enlightenment is like. In the book, The Vision of Bhagavad Gita, Swami Tejomayananda shares, to be able to direct your body and mind is freedom. When your body and mind don't listen to you, you are bound, you are a slave. See how much more personal these definitions of freedom and bondage are. Freedom in action, all of the actions we engage in, learn from them. Experience quietude of mind in your nature. We continue. We're moving to chapter 3, verse 12. This is a shloka in a series of shlokas I've already referenced as being an ideal way to manage yourself, manage people. Ishtan bhogan hi vo devaha. Ishtan bhogan hi vo devaha. Dasyante yajna bhavitaha. Dasyante yajna bhavitaha. Terdattan apradayebhyaha. Terdattan apradayebhyaha. Yo bhungte stena eva saha. Yo bhungte stena eva saha. First quarter. Devaha, the devas. This can be interpreted literally as the semi-gods, or this can be interpreted more philosophically. Deva means that which illuminates. So there's an external deva and there's an internal deva. Ishtan bhogan. The devas or the deva will give us what we want will give us what we need. So starting with the external devas, we can generally call this the multiverse. The multiverse will give you what you want. If you work with the multiverse will work with you. And if we can all remember the privilege that we've lived with for the last 20, 30, 50, 100 years, the multiverse has provided that, no? Clean water, sunlight, opportunity, and on and on and on. That's external. Internally, the self is that which illuminates. The self is a source of light. Only the self can give us what we need. And I hope you caught that difference. The multiverse can give you what you want, but not what you need. The self will not give you what you want, but will give you what you need. And what is it that we all need? Sukha prapti, the presence of peace. Peace is not external, peace is internal. Why would the multiverse, why will the self give this to us, what we want, what we need? Dasyante, they will grant this, they will give this only bhavitaha if we have this feeling, if we have this bhava of yajna. I met some young kids recently who practice, they're Zoroastrians. And she was asking me about some of the terminology in Zoroastrianism. And essentially she was asking me what Agni means and what Yajna means. And I told her that Agni is an icon for presence, light. Where there's fire, you can see what's around you. And within the word Yajna is Agni. The idea being is that we should keep on living so that there's more light in the world, so that we can see more. And I hope I didn't distract you from this thought. The word Yajna means to be dedicated. Whatever you are dedicated towards, you are ready to sacrifice for. If you think of the freedom fighters in Bharat, the majority of freedom fighters were murdered or died before the freedom of Bharat. Yes? They were dedicated to freedom, freedom for the masses. And in doing so, they sacrificed their own life, their own families. In terms of being dedicated to the multiverse, I'm going to give you a framework here called the Pancha Maha Yajna. Some context. In Sanatana Dharma, how many samskaras or milestones are there in one's life? Show me with your hands. I see a 10 and a 5. People are just raising the roof right now. There are 41, of which 16 have become popular. Out of these 16, you know how many you do independently? 2. The first 13 are done for you. The 13th being vivaha or marriage. 14 and 15 you do. 16 is done for you too because the body has died. Isn't that fascinating? The 16 milestones in your life, only 2 you do independently. The 14th is called Pancha Maha Yajna and the 15th is called Vanaprastha. So I'm highlighting the 14th. Pancha Maha Yajna means to be dedicated to 5 facets of creation. So here we go. I'm going to start externally and keep on coming internally. Number one externally is called Deva Rina, the debt we owe to nature's forces. Nature's forces like rain, like gravity. If there were no gravity, there'd be no athletics, right? You throw a ball, it's gone. You jump, you're gone. Have you ever expressed your gratitude to gravity? That's how awesome our scriptures are. No detail is left behind. Coming closer, number two is called the Bhuta Rina, the debt we owe to nature's forces. Yesterday, Pearl Jam's new single came out. It's called Dance with the Clairvoyants. And if you watch the video, there's a lot of scenes of honeybees or bees. And the reason for that, this video is about how we are destroying the environment. When we destroy honeybees, what also gets destroyed? Our eating. To be grateful for worms to decompose our food and decompose us. Honeybees and on and on and on. Number three, this is known as Samaj Rina, the debt we owe to society. To those who are civil servants, people like firefighters, people like first responders, people who pick up the garbage, people who are engaged in urban development, those whose lives are dedicated to social service. Yes, especially in North America. You go to a building that's a few floors high, there's an elevator. That's amazing. There's so many compounds and apartments in India that are 12 floors and you have to walk up those stairs. How does that work for someone who's injured or someone who's old? Number four, I'm coming closer, Pitra Rina, the debt we owe to our parents and our whole lineage. Factually, if your parents weren't born, you wouldn't be born. Your grandparents weren't born, you wouldn't be born. So many of us in our course, we have aging parents. Yes. And I feel that if we're growing wiser, not just older, we like to be around our parents more. We like to listen to them more. Yeah? Because we realize how lucky we are. The debt we owe to our parents. And the closest, the most important is known as Rishi Rina. The debt we owe to the Rishis, to the Guru Shishya Parampara, whose single reason for breathing is to spread happiness. Our parents, they've fed us, they've clothed us, they've educated us, but they may not have taught us how to be happy. And that's what we need, as I mentioned. That's why the Rishi Rina is the most important, because they teach us how to be happy. So what does it mean to engage in yajna for the devas that are outside? To constantly repay these debts. And you need to figure out how to do that. Now, how do you engage in yajna towards the self, the deva within? There are lots and lots and lots of ways. I'm going to highlight for all of you. The fruit or the phala of self-development is subtle. It is long-term. When you know that the fruit of coming to this class every week, the fruit of engaging in japa in the morning is not going to be, you're going to look better, you're going to make more money. But you know that you just feel more cheerful. That in the long run, you have more meaning in your life. That shows you're dedicated to the Deva, to the light. Whenever we feel frustrated or impatient, that's a lack of dedication towards self-development. Okay? So that quarter is complete too. The first line is sharing a thought in the positive. You teach through love. The second line is teaching through the negative, through fear. So the third quarter says, Taihi Dattan, the multiverse, the self that gives you what you want, what you need. Apradayebhyaha, if you don't give back, and I'm going to complete this soon, but the idea is you've gotten, but you're not giving. Okay, so let's highlight this and then we'll get into the deep implication, the deep consequence. I gave you a framework called the Pancha Mahayagnas. I'm going to give you one more framework. This quarter is highlighting selfishness. The Pancha Karmas, if we can start with the rightmost karma is known as Nitya Karma. Nitya Karma means regular responsibilities. And you've heard me say this many times. What are some of your regular responsibilities? And the immediate one that comes to mind is grooming. Brushing your teeth is a regular responsibility. Yes? Now moving to the left, beside this is Naimittika Karma, which is your special responsibility. Special responsibilities like attending a wedding, a funeral, going on a business conference once a year, if that's required, or coming back to our example, flossing. Even though flossing should be your regular responsibility, really we make it our special responsibility, isn't it? When do you all floss? Before you visit the dentist, as if thinking you're going to trick that dentist from knowing, oh yeah, I floss all the time. Naimittika Karma, special responsibilities. Now I come to our center. Okay, there's two to the right. Now I'm in the center. This is called Kamya Karma. Kamya Karma is not a responsibility anymore. It's selfish action. A selfish action is where you have received, but you've not given. And that's what's being highlighted here. That the multiverse is perpetually giving. The self is perpetually giving, but one is not giving back. Now, beside Kamya Karma, I'm on number 4 now. This is known as Nishiddha Karma. The more selfish one is, the more one takes others in the multiverse for granted, one gets into what is known as prohibited actions or immoral actions. Prohibited sounds too legal, so let's shift to immoral actions. See, in selfishness, I hurt myself. When I'm immoral, I don't just hurt myself, I hurt others. And now my 5th, this is furthest to the left, is known as Prayaschitta Karma. If I'm selfish and I don't check it, I'll devolve to immorality. And the way to check immorality, Prayaschitta Karma means rehabilitation actions. To discipline my mind. Chitta means mind. Prayaha means discipline. To discipline my mind from engaging in immorality to it being selfish. It is better you don't hurt others and hurt yourself. Better than that, tend to your special responsibilities. Better than that, tend to your regular responsibilities. So this is being highlighted, selfishness. And that's more for the devas that are outside. Now for the deva that's inside. What selfishness looks like is someone who gives up. When you are not appreciating that the fruit of self-development is subtle, is long-term, you give up. Where the self is given you tastes of joy, and you forsaked that. You gave it up. I barely made it through English class in high school. And now I have to speak publicly. So a selfish person who gets and doesn't give, what are they called? I'm on my last quarter now. Yaha bhungte. Such a person who's a taker, who's indulgent, who's a bhogi. Saha, that person, eva, is only a stena. A stena is a thief. That is a tough word, tough love from Bhagavan Krishna. Anyone who gets without giving is a thief. This is a strong message because I don't think any of us think that we're thieves. But if you reflect deeply on a lot of what I've shared so far, we've received far more than we've given. And so we have that propensity to be selfish, to be a thief. I'll tell you how this feels. In our lives, there are 3 thieves that live with us. They're sitting beside you right now. The 3 thieves in our lives are regrets of the past. The second thief, anxieties of the future. And the third thief, excitement in the present. When one does not live a life of dedication to the multiverse, when one does not live a life of dedication to development, that's inner development, to the self, the thief that is really growing in our personality is regrets of the past because we're acting in an immoral way. Anxieties of the future. We're experiencing stress and sadness. We don't want the future to come. And excitement in the present means a dependency is being created. Those are the thieves that live inside of us, and when these thieves live with us, we become the same way. Yes? Really, if a group of thieves were caught and you happen to be on the same scene, they're going to arrest you too. Until further inquiry, but just that association with that group, you're going to get caught too. And that's what's happening to us in such a subliminal way. Regrets, anxieties, excitement. And since we're so intellectual, the thief that is most dominant in our personalities, and I know this in mine for sure, it's anxiety of the future. For me, it's not anxiety, but instruction. I'm forever trying to be more efficient, trying to plan the next year, 10 years. So it's not anxiety, but it's another emotion, another thought that's pulling me towards the future, and I miss out on the gift, on the treasure that is the presence of the multiverse, of the spirit. My last thought with all of you, I'm going to share 2 awesome experiences that happened to me today, even before I prepared for this shloka. Today when I was driving Vyasa to preschool, I had stopped at a light, and in front of me was a car with 2 Pearl Jam stickers on the car. And we were driving some more, and we got to another light, and this car was in the left, and I pulled up beside this person, and I started going like this, roll down your window. Now you think to yourself, would you roll down your window if someone pulled up beside you and looking like me, especially? And I started going like this, right? Would you roll down your window? And that person did. And I said, hey man, I got tickets to Hamilton and the pre-sale goes on sale today, so I'm looking for tickets for Toronto and Nashville. And he says, I already have tickets for Hamilton, Toronto, and Nashville. I'm going to all of these other shows. There is such camaraderie. Okay, so now we'll pause there. I dropped Vyas off at preschool. I'm going back home, and there's a bus in front of me, and it's taking forever. Sheila happens to call and says, can you go to Starbucks and get something? So I go to the Starbucks, and he's there. That same gentleman is there, and he looks at me and says, I tried to follow you, but you took off. And we had a nice conversation about all the shows that he's been to, all of the shows I've been to. And to me, this was very much, when you're dedicated to Pearl Jam, the multiverse will be dedicated back. So now I have tickets to Toronto and Nashville also. You may not see all of the dots connected, but I do. That's why I'm teaching this class, for you to see how the dots are connected. Now I share about being dedicated to the self. You know I do this as a social service. We have 2 young kids, and Sheila is an immigration attorney who's self-employed. And despite us having less time, specifically Sheila, less time for her professional work is growing in a more efficient and effective way than ever. And because of that, we're able to do more social service, like have these classes and organize retreats and go on yatras. Because if Sheila was not my sugar mama, then I wouldn't be able to live the way I do, no? And that's the self. When one is dedicated to the self will give you what you need. So I'm sharing my own personal experiences about the truth of this shloka and how it relates to working. Together. Ishtan bhogan hivo devaha dasyante yajna bhavitaha ter dattan apradayebhyaha yo bhunkte stena eva saha. Oh.